July 4th, 1943, 0300 hours. A cold mist crawls across the fields outside Tomorovka, clinging to the hulls of hundreds of German tanks lined up like metallic beasts waiting for a command. Engines rumble low, snorting exhaust into the darkness. Crews whisper inside their steel shells. A faint smell of oil and summer wheat hangs in the air. Above the horizon, the first trace of dawn bruises the sky. Inside his command Panther, Field Marshal Erich von Manstein listens as officers joke over the radio sharp, confident, dismissive. Just another Soviet tin can waiting to be cracked. One general laughs, another adds, the T-34? Crude, ugly, barely a tank. Our Tigers will swat them like flies. Their voices are smug, dripping with the certainty of men who had seen victory again and again across Europe, and who believe they understood their enemy. But on this morning, the steppes keep their own secrets. Manstein doesn't laugh. He adjusts his gloves, tightens his jaw, and stares ahead into the gray murk, where he knows thousands of Soviet guns are watching back. The earth seems to hold its breath. A single artillery burst shatters the silence, then another, then 1,000. The sky lights up with orange streaks as Soviet batteries open fire, first a thunderclap across 200 miles of front. The ground shakes under Manstein's tank. He grips a handle to steady himself as soil rains from the sky. This wasn't supposed to happen. Germany was meant to strike first, but Stavka knew. Katukov knew. The Red Army was awake. Across the lines in a camouflage dugout near Olkovatka, General Mikhail Katukov watches the night turn red. Illumination flares rise like slow-burning suns, revealing the silhouettes of German armor, massed Panthers. Tigers, Mark IVs, advancing into a hellstorm they didn't expect. Katukov lights a cigarette. The flame briefly illuminating the scar on his cheek earned years earlier fighting the same enemy. He speaks calmly into the field telephone. Let them come. Hold your fire until you see their fronts. The sloped armor will do the rest. Outside, T-34 engines rev to life. Their low-pitched growls merge into a single metallic thunder, like an approaching storm. You can almost feel the heat from their exhausts. You can almost smell the gasoline and hear the clatter of treads chewing into the soil. Young Soviet tankers, some barely 18, tighten their gloves, whisper prayers, and press their helmets against vibrating steel walls. They know what's coming. Know the Germans consider them inferior, poorly trained, barely worth the shells it takes to kill them. But today, they aren't prey. Today, they're the ambush. As the sun finally creeps over the horizon, its light glints off thousands of curved turrets. From a distance, they look like a rising tide of green waves. A junior German officer, binoculars shaking, murmurs, There are hundreds of them. His commander corrects him quietly. No, thousands. Still hubris lingers. Their armor is weak, another insists. Our 88s will tear through them. But he and T know what Katukov. S Brigade learned through blood and fire back in 1941 that the T-34's sloped armor wasn't a design accident or a Soviet shortcut. It was geometry weaponized, faster, more agile, able to deflect rounds that should have punched clean through. And now, in the open plains of Kursk, that advantage was multiplied tenfold. Soviet gunners brace. The air vibrates. And then Katukov gives the order. A rolling wave of T-34s surges forward, engines howling. Their guns ignite simultaneously, a wall of flame and steel rushing downhill toward the advancing German armor. The first German shells strike and ricochet. Sparks explode harmlessly off angled hulls. Inside a Tiger, a gunner curses as his round bounces. What the hell? Reload. Reload. But the T-34s are moving too fast. Weaving like wolves around heavier German tanks, closing distance before the next shot can be lined up. A Panther erupts in flames, then another. The battlefield turns into a roar of exploding turrets, screaming metal and shattering glass. Manstein watches radio reports pour in, units stalled, tanks destroyed, infantry pinned under relentless fire. Operation Citadel was moments old, and already the German timetable was collapsing. The belief that German engineering superiority will prevail. The belief that the Soviets cannot maintain this momentum. He doesn't yet know what lies ahead at Prokhorovka, where history will be written in smoke and burned iron. He doesn't know that by the end of this week, the ground beneath his command will be littered with twisted German steel panthers gutted. Tigers immobile, crews buried inside. But in this moment, as the sky turns black with smoke and the Soviets charge headlong into the fire, a silent shift takes place. The Germans aren't laughing anymore. And somewhere deep inside Manstein's chest, beneath the metals, beneath the discipline, beneath the war-hardened facada, unfamiliar emotion stirs. Doubt. The morning assault drags into a choking, dust-filled noon. Smoke hangs low over the steppe like a dirty shroud. Tank crews cough black soot, rub ash from their eyes, and slam fresh shells into breeches with scraped, bleeding hands. Engines roar, stall, roar again. Everywhere metal screams. By 1100 hours on July 5th, the once orderly German advance has dissolved into a labyrinth of burning hulks and churning earth. Radio channels erupt with frantic voices comes that were crisp and confident hours earlier, now clipped and trembling. Panther 205 disabled. Transmission failure again. We're taking fire from the left, no. The right can't get a fix. Tiger Grupp. Report. Tiger Grupp. Do you read? Manstein listens. His fingers tap the radio table too fast, too tight. His Panthers, fresh off the assembly lines, had been pitched as mechanical gods. But the reality? Overheating engines, gearboxes choking on dust, tanks broken down before they even fired a shot. Germany's newest weapon was dying under its own weight. Meanwhile, Katukov's forces pressed the advantage with a precision the Germans never saw coming. Every T-34 seems to appear from nowhere. From the tall wheat, from sunken roads, from dug-in camouflaged pits invisible until the moment they strike. These aren't chaotic Soviet crews anymore. These are veteran hunters. From inside one low-slung T-34, Sergeant Alexei Voronov wipes sweat from his brow. The metal hull is an oven. Shell casings rattle around his boots. He hears the loader muttering a folk prayer under his breath. Target Tiger, 400 meters. Alexei aims, exhales. Fires, the recoil slams his shoulder. But he keeps the sightline steady long enough to see smoke burst from the Tiger-S flank right, where its armor is weakest. A cheer erupts in the cramped cabin. For a moment, despite the thunder outside, the young crew feels invincible. Then a German round smashes into the dirt inches from their tread, showering them with soil and shrapnel. Move, move. The tank lurches backward, treads biting deep into the earth as they slip out of sight behind a smoking ridge. They'll live another minute. And that minute means everything. Across the battlefield, similar micro-survivals add up. Soviets aren't just matching the Germans, they're slipping through gaps. Choosing when to fight and when to vanish, forcing the vaunted Wehrmacht to respond instead of command. For the first time since Barbarossa, the Red Army is dictating the tempo. Manstein watches as unit after unit falls behind schedule. His carefully crafted plan and encirclement meant to snap shut around Kursk like a bear trap is already unraveling. He slams a fist onto the map table. The papers jump. This shouldn't be possible, he mutters to an aide. Eyes locked on the red markers representing Katukov's brigades. They're not supposed to move like this. They're not supposed to know. But they do know. Stavka had studied German doctrine for years. They knew the angles of German ambushes, the timings of their barrages, the strengths and brutal weaknesses of their tanks. And they knew something even more important. Germany believed its own myths. The myth of invincible armor. The myth of the inferior T-34. The myth that Soviet strategy was primitive. Myths make armies blind. By mid-afternoon, the battlefield becomes a graveyard in progress. Blackened, skeletal Panthers lie tilted in craters. Tigers burn from internal explosions, ammunition cooking off in violent bursts. German infantry scramble for cover behind shattered turrets as Soviet shells rain down. Still Manstein orders forward. He clings to the belief that somewhere ahead, the Soviet lines must break, must crack, must finally give way. Because if they don't, then everything the Wehrmacht believes about itself is a lie. Near the front line, an exhausted German commander lifts his binoculars. Through wavering heat distortion, he sees dozens of T-34s cresting a ridge. Sunlight reflecting off their angled hulls like a moving wall of mirrors. He whispers almost to himself, "They're not running, they're advancing." Behind him, a fresh battery of Soviet Katyushas is wheeled into position. Their rails rise like rows of steel fangs. A tremor runs through the ground, subtle at first, then growing, pulsing, building into something primal. And as those launchers angle skyward, every man in earshot feels his stomach twist into a knot. The whistle begins. Long, shrill, inescapable. Hell is about to open. July 7th, 1943. The third dawn of Operation Citadel rises red-hot with sunlight. But with the reflection of burning tanks scattered across the Kursk salient, the battlefield no longer looks like Earth. The air tastes of cordite, gasoline, and scorched wheat. Every breath rasps the throat. Every footstep sinks into churned mud soaked with oil and blood. But the real terror is the sound. A constant metallic shriek, the crying of 1,000 wounded machines. And as the Katyushas unleash their storm, the entire horizon turns into a wall of fire. Then the sky falls. Dozens of roaring rockets scream overhead, their trails carving jagged white scars across the dawn. The ground shakes as each warhead slams into the German lines with deafening, concussive violence. Shockwaves rip through trenches. Tanks tip, flip, burn. Men clutch their helmets, ears ringing, unable to hear their own screams. It is artillery, but not like anything the Wehrmacht has ever faced. To the Germans, Katyushas feel less like weapons, and more like nature itself rising up to strike them down, inside a Panther tank that has already lost a track. Lieutenant Heinrich Adler braces himself against the hull as a rocket lands close enough to rattle his teeth. He feels the tank shudder violently. "Report," he yells. No answer. Smoke floods the cabin. The loader lies slumped against the ammo rack olive, but dazed. The gunner vomits into his gloved hands, ears bleeding from the blast. Adler tries to open the hatch, but it's jammed bent inward by shrapnel. His heart pounds. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Panthers were supposed to be unstoppably armored masterpieces that would roll over Soviet lines like titans. Now, trapped inside a burning steel coffin, Adler realizes the truth. They were never tested against this. It's not against mud deeper than a man's waist. Not against rockets that could vaporize an entire squad. Not against T-34s that refuse to fight properly, darting and weaving like predators. That learned your habits long before you learned theirs. And not against Soviet crews who fought like men defending their last breath of homeland. Meanwhile, on the Soviet side, Colonel Mikhail Katukov watches through binoculars as his armored brigades continue the relentless forward push. He has no illusions. His men are dying in horrifying numbers. T-34s burn just as easily as Panthers. But the difference, the one that matters, is tactical. Where German tanks form tight, disciplined columns, the Soviets scatter, swarm, disappear, reappear, and overwhelm one machine at a time. A doctrine born in fire, Katukov spots something, a wedge of Tigers forming up for a counterattack. "Signal the 1st Tank Brigade," he shouts. "Flank them from the south. Don't engage head-on." His orders spread across radios like electricity. Minutes later, a dozen T-34s burst from a ravine, engines roaring at full throttle. Dust erupts behind them. Holes glint in sunlight. They move fast, too fast for the Tigers' slow traversing turrets. One Tiger pivots, turret groaning. It's too late. A T-34 slams a shell straight into its side armor. A plume of flame jets out of the Tiger's commander hatch. The giant shudders, then collapses like a dying beast. In another turret, German commander Rudi Kaltenborn watches the scene unfold, lips trembling. "This is impossible," he whispers. "We're supposed to be the hunters, but they aren't. Not anymore." Far to the west, Field Marshal Manstein receives new reports. Panther losses exceed 40%. Tiger advance halted. Soviet defense is intact. He grips the map table until his knuckles whiten. It's not the losses that make his jaw clench. It's the implications. If the offensive fails, if the Red Army holds, Germany cannot launch another major assault on the Eastern Front ever again. This battle isn't just a clash of armor. It's the last roll of the dice. And the dice are turning against him. Manstein's staff officer approaches with fresh intel. "New Soviet units are arriving from the north and east, sir. And Entire corps? Their reserves seem, he hesitates. Endless. Manstein looks up slowly. Endless. The word hangs in the air like a death sentence. Outside, the distant rumble of tank engines grows louder, the sound of Soviet reinforcements closing in. The momentum is shifting, and once momentum shifts on the Eastern Front, a runner bursts into the command post. Field Marshal, aerial reconnaissance just spotted something. Soviets are building an anti-tank stronghold at Prokhorovka. A massive one. Manstein's breath stops. Prokhorovka, a place that will soon become the crucible of the entire war. But the fate of the German army, and it will begin with a sound that shakes the earth. The roar of 1,000 tank engines gathering for the most violent armored collision in human history. July 12, 1943. Asterisk, asterisk, the fields around Prokhorovka shimmer with heat. Dust rises in thick curtains from the churned earth, swirling with smoke from burning tanks. The sun beats down mercilessly on the German and Soviet lines alike. Every metal surface glints. Every turret casts a long, wavering shadow. The horizon itself seems to tremble under the combined weight of steel and fire. Inside his Tiger, Captain Wilhelm Hartmann peers through the periscope. He counts over 600 T-34s moving in coordinated waves toward his position. His hands tremble not from fear, but disbelief. "This is insane," he mutters to his radio operator. "We outgun them, we outrange them, yet they keep coming." But the Soviets don't come in neat lines or predictable formations. Swarm. They merge and vanish, striking weak points in German armor with surgical precision. Every Panther and Tiger that had inspired confidence back in Tumarovka now becomes a target, vulnerable to the relentless onslaught. At the front, Sergeant Alexei Voronov drives his T-34 through a cratered field. Engine growling, gun aimed at the nearest Tiger. The heat is unbearable. Smoke from exploded tanks burns his eyes, yet he pushes forward, gripping the controls like a lifeline. Round him, comrades shout over the roar of engines and gunfire. Commands echo across the battlefield. Left flank, watch the ridge. Target the commanders first. Every shell fired is a calculation, every maneuver a desperate attempt to survive. Yet somehow the Soviet forces advance with astonishing coordination. It is not luck. It is discipline tempered by the agony of past defeats, sharpened into lethal efficiency. Manstein watches the unfolding carnage from his mobile command post. His face is pale, eyes narrow, jaw set like iron. Reports come in by the minute. Tigers destroyed, Panthers immobilized, infantry pinned, artillery suppressed. The Wehrmacht's advance is stalling not from lack of effort, but because the enemy refuses to break. Hold positions, Manstein orders, though even he knows it is futile. We cannot allow Prokhorovka to fall. The ground shakes as shells impact nearby. Tiger explodes in a fireball that lights the morning sky like an artificial sun. Crew members are thrown clear, screaming, some never to rise again. The smell of burning fuel and scorched metal is overpowering, searing lungs and minds alike. Across the field, Soviet T-34s dart between craters. Their sloped armor deflecting shots that would have obliterated lesser machines. For every German tank that fires, at least one Soviet tank survives, and sometimes multiple Soviet tanks counterattack from unexpected angles. Amid the chaos, Voronov spots a Tiger commander trying to regroup his men behind cover. He squeezes the trigger, and the shell strikes the Tiger's turret. Sparks and flames erupt. The massive tank lurches, then collapses into a crater, sealing the crew's fate. A young German officer watching through binoculars shakes his head, muttering under his breath, "How is this possible? Our tanks are engineering. This should not happen." It is at this moment that the truth of Kursk strikes. The T-34 was never inferior. Its design, once laughed at in German command posts, is now the spearhead of disaster. The enemy had underestimated not just the tank, but the human spirit operating it. The clash intensifies. Panthers and Tigers are no longer advancing. They are surviving. German crews scramble from tank to tank, attempting to salvage what they can, shouting orders over a wall of cannon fire. The steppe itself seems alive, groaning under the weight of men, steel, and fire. Katukov watches from a command T-34 at the rear. Sweat drips down his face. His men are exhausted, but the momentum belongs to them. The German advance falters. Their pride shatters under a rain of shells, smoke, and relentless determination. And then, from the eastern ridge, another wave of Soviet tanks appears, fresh reinforcements timed to perfection. The Germans are now encircled on multiple fronts, their offensive ground to a crawl. Manstein realizes with grim clarity, Operation Citadel is failing. The once vaunted Wehrmacht is bleeding, and Kursk is becoming a graveyard of German steel and ambition. For every German tank that roars, there is a T-34 to meet it. For every German gun fired, another Soviet counter finds its mark. And with each hour, the battlefield tilts further, irreversibly, toward the Red Army. Manstein sits in stunned silence. The myth of German armored supremacy lies in ashes around him, and as smoke blots out the horizon, he knows there will be no turning back. July 13th, 1943. The sun rises over Kursk. Blood red and blistering, casting long shadows across a landscape transformed into a graveyard. Everywhere steel lies twisted and blackened. German pride, once as solid as the Panthers and Tigers that marched confidently into the steppe, is shattered. The fields themselves seem to weep smoke and fire. Field Marshal Erich von Manstein moves among his aides in a mobile command post, the radio buzzing incessantly with reports of destroyed tanks and stalled advances. The words strike like hammers to the chest. Panther 312 destroyed by T-34 platoon at northern flank. Tiger I immobilized near. Prokhorovku lost. Infantry pinned. Artillery suppressed. Advance halted. He closes his eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of failure pressing down. For months, he had believed German engineering, tactics, and discipline could crush the Soviets. But Kursk has proven otherwise. The T-34, once mocked as crude scrap, has outmatched every expectation. His uniform is blackened, face smeared with soot and blood. Around him, men groan, screaming in agony or silent disbelief. He looks at the horizon waves of green T-34s advancing relentlessly. Seemingly endless, each armored hull a hammer striking German morale. Across the field, Colonel Mikhail Katukov surveys the victory in grim silence. His men are exhausted, covered in mud, blood, and sweat, yet their spirits burn. They have not only survived, they have decisively stopped the German offensive. Every Tiger felled, every Panther destroyed. Every German advance blunted is a testament to preparation, ingenuity, and sheer human resolve. Prokhorovka becomes symbolic, battlefield where arrogance met reality, where myth collided with truth, and where the Wehrmacht learned, brutally, that the T-34's sloped armor and Soviet tactical brilliance could turn their steel gods into pyres. Back in Berlin, reports reach the high command. Panic is muted by bureaucracy, but the truth seeps through cracks. The Eastern Front's strategic balance is shifting irreversibly. Hitler's generals, once laughing at the so-called inferior T-34, now recognize their miscalculation. The pride of the Wehrmacht is tarnished, perhaps permanently. Manstein sits alone late that evening, maps spread before him. Every line, every red dot representing a Soviet unit, seems to mock him. The weight of Kursk presses not just on the army, but on the very soul of the German military establishment. It is not just a battlefield lost. It is a turning point, a crack in the armor of the Third Reich that will widen relentlessly until the Red Army marches into Berlin. And yet, even amid destruction, there is a lesson engraved in fire and steel. Arrogance can blind the strongest armies. Underestimation can transform laughter into ruin. Sometimes the simplest designed sloped armor, disciplined crews, relentless resolve can defeat what seemed invincible. The fields of Kursk, littered with German tombs of metal, echo with a silent, chilling truth. The T-34 is not merely a tank. It is a harbinger of the collapse of an empire built on overconfidence. As night falls, smoke rising from the battlefield forms black clouds over shattered panzer lines, silhouetted against the dying light. Somewhere in the distance, a T-34 rolls forward, unbroken, unstoppable. A testament to both human ingenuity and the futility of hubris. For Germany, the laughing at the T-34 has ended. For the Soviets, Kursk is a monument to endurance, courage, and the unshakable power of the human will. And for history, it is remembered as the day when mockery became catastrophe and pride met iron.